Good evening from my end of the galaxy, and good morning from your end, from your star in the galaxy. My name is Dr. Tovah Goldfine. I tend to forget to mention my name, so there you go. I'm streaming live from Israel. It's 9:00 this evening, and in my holy studio, I am one blessed human being, because not only do I have my friend and co-host Jeannie Colwyn, who I think we're going to be co-hosting once or twice a month. We have a plan to take this even more live and heal more people and bring more magic. And today in the studio, I've been blessed to connect with Vanessa Blackstone. I love your name. I just love your
Thank
name.
you.
There's a whole show we could do about your name. Here, I want to bring it up on the marquee since I'm the producer. Here we go. So Vanessa, I actually met you when I did the PRT certification, and you were this sort of like executive director of the pain psychology, yada yada. And then there was Daniela Deitch, and Alan Gordon was in the video, and I was like, then there's this Vanessa person, and I was like, okay, Vanessa, and all of a sudden, I see you like 2 months ago on a podcast with Dr. David Hanscom. I'm like, okay, if Dr. David Hanscom had her, I got to meet her. And I heard your story, and of course, I related very much to that. You had chronic pain. You are recovering chronic pain. You are a TMSer, and you have really done what so many people have done, is said, wait a minute. Not only do I need to heal myself, I need to help others. And that's what makes me just feel so humbled, because I myself did not suffer with chronic pain. And I know that Jeannie has a story. We've been on live a few times, and we will hear about your story. But for the first part of our live, and whoever's in the audience on the Facebook page, Jeannie and I are both certified in pain reprocessing therapy, and really excited. And we've talked about how it's changed our practice in many ways. So we'd love to talk about your job at the Pain Psychology Center, which is Alan Gordon Center, as well as why this new book, and how it can help others, and how we can help you bring it to people and continue to help our patients.
Yeah. So many things. I love it.
and Jeannie and I are going to interrupt very gently.
It's okay. It helps. Yes, because I can ramble. I can talk forever. I talk myself in circles, so please interrupt.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, gosh, it's been quite a journey. Well, pain reprocessing therapy in sum is just working with the brain's neuroplasticity. That is the brain's ability to rewire itself. And what happens when we get stuck in this cycle of chronic pain is a lot of the times when we've tried everything and nothing is working, or we're noticing that we have specific triggers around pain, we can start to look at things through a perspective of your symptoms are very real and very much so happening, but why you're getting them or why they are as intense as they are is what we're questioning in the neuroplasticity of things. And so the things that I like to tell folks is that PRT, pain reprocessing therapy, it doesn't hurt. So when we try it and we use it as a perspective to try to dial down your pain signals or to help change the way in which you respond, we are not asking you to give anything up, to like, it's kind of like a weird term to use, but it's what comes to mind, to like manhandle your symptoms or white knuckle it and be like, nah, like walking 5 kilometers versus 3, like doesn't hurt me. I'm going to do it anyways and do it every day. We're actually asking you to overall create a new foundation of slowing down, changing the way in which you respond, learn about where pain comes from your brain to the body, and seeing if we can allow a new perspective that really gives us the tools to feel like we're coexisting or working better with our nervous system. I like to call pain reprocessing therapy couples therapy. It's like something has happened between you and your body.
I love it. That is something new.
Yeah.
I love it.
Write that down.
Yeah, it's like couples therapy. Like you can't divorce your body. You're kind of stuck with it, but it doesn't feel like the two of you are on the same page, and you're not communicating in an effective way, and your home feels all disgruntled and tense, and you feel constantly angry with each other. or afraid of each other.
I love it.
And what we're doing in pain reprocessing therapy is getting the two of you to be more on the same page. And we can't do that by constantly forcing ourselves to be on the same page. We have to like loosen our grip and use this work to get to an understanding of working with our sensations in our body, even when it's uncomfortable. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it, is just using that neuroplasticity to change the way in which we respond.
You know, I'm sure Jeannie's going to agree with me because, you know, like it sounds like, okay, let's do it. I can do it. And then, you know, like Jeannie and I have a goal to sort of talk about what Dr. Schubiner, you know, he mentions that like 40% of the people, you know, 100% of people come to him, 60% get better. And then there's that 40%. And those are the people that are going down the rabbit hole and, or getting constant, like, and I'm on Facebook a lot and I see constantly people talking about, well, I got better and it came back. So, you know, they didn't really get to the cause or their brain got smarter or whatever really happened. But how, and Jeannie, chime in here. How do you deal with the people who are not the book healers or not the book cures? How do you?
And I was going to add something to that too, maybe clarify. I mean, we know what neuroplasticity is, but for maybe someone who's new with this, and you have people, I had an older client tell me, I can't change. I'm this many years old. So what's the more like clinical response to that? And then also kind of what Tovah said.
Good question.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. I think that this work is such a balance. It's a balance of like who we really are. Like this is something that I tell my clients that I can relate with in a lot of ways, like high achieving, type A, go kind of people that have a hard time slowing down. I like to kind of highlight, like, there's nothing wrong with the way that you are. Like if you have a tendency to react a certain way or to push through sensations, or I don't know, if we're just like foundationally kind of like anxious or urgent, or even if you are like a little outcome dependent, like I'm outcome dependent too. I want someone to get better as well. Like I totally want to be right, you know, like I want to be on that side of like, yeah, we got you better, you know. But there's nothing wrong with the way that we are. We can be exactly who we are. We don't have to change like our core being. We're just kind of changing our core beliefs. Like the belief that this sensation is hurting you is what's keeping you stuck. It doesn't hurt you to try to alter that belief. It's just challenging, and it's a process, but it's a dance, and it takes time, and it's non-linear. And to expect it to only go one way, linear up and out, is so unrealistic. And so we have to be honest with the fact that it's going to be up and down. And it's not about changing who you are. It's about changing your beliefs. And trying to change your beliefs won't hurt you. So
I love it.
Try.
What do you two think about? There's a guy here in Israel who he actually he's an NLP coach. Used to be in high tech. He was paid by the publishing company of Joe Dispenza's books, not by Joe Dispenza, but the publishing company. He was paid to translate the Joe Dispenza books into Hebrew. It's a lovely guy, and he has a podcast called Evolve or Die. And I love to say that we're not changing you. You are who you are, and who you are is really what you need to accept and become more aware of and love. But if you can evolve, or like what you said, you know, like grow into a place, and the thoughts are not working for you, so why wouldn't you want to change them or add to them, or like I call it changing the gears? What do you think about that, Jeannie?
Yeah, I mean, my background is a coach, right? So coaching is really getting into like beliefs, limiting beliefs, right? That fixed mindset. So that's what I'll do. For example, if someone's, I can't change, and I'll give them teach them what neuroplasticity is, and like, well, based on all the science, that's not true. So first of all, it's a myth. It's not true. Like we actually, I don't care how old you are, if you're breathing, we can change. Oh, Scotty's here. Hi, Scotty. And I love to point out a growth mindset, right? Means that you can change your beliefs. Like, what do you say? What do you tell people, Vanessa, when they say, I can't change my beliefs, it doesn't work, or it's too hard?
Yeah. Well, if it was easy, you would have done it already. So that's
Good point.
I'm kind of like a direct, with compassion. I am a very direct person with clients. So and honestly, I feel like being able to talk that way kind of helps my own burnout. You know, if I can just be honest and build a good relationship and tell people, look, I hear you. It is really hard, but also like if it was easy, you would have done it already. So that's why we're here navigating through it together. But a fun example that I love to use just to kind of like further support that ultimate fear is, have either of you, this is a very funny question, have you seen the movie Doctor Strange? It's a Marvel movie. No?
Strange Love or Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange. It's like a superhero movie. It's a Marvel movie. Okay. I'm not a huge Marvel person. I got into it because my little brother, we had like a binge weekend when he was visiting me, and we watched almost every single Marvel movie, and it's actually really fun. But anyways, I watched.
Get to the point,
Dr.
Vanessa.
Strange. I know. It's so good. I watched Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is a really intense guy. His character is like, he's a brain surgeon. He's super, super smart. And he's like constantly on the go and just like doing a million different things. And in the movie, he's driving to the fancy party in his fancy car, gets into a car accident. And of course, because it's a movie, he injures his hands, and you can't be a brain surgeon with injured hands. And so the movie is moving really quickly. And in the movie, they're like doing all these surgeries, and he still has a tremor. And he gets to a point where he's like calling everybody idiots. And he's like, if I could just operate on myself, I would be better. You all are stupid. And then they're like, you know what? Fine. You're right. Operate on yourself. So he starts losing people, losing his support system. He's so angry, and he's just getting increasingly worse. And because it's a movie, he ends up finding this answer through some physical therapist that he berates about a client that got better. He tracks down that client. He's like, how did you get better? You shouldn't have healed from your injuries. And again, it's a movie. He's encouraged to go to this middle of nowhere place to meet the Ancient One. And when I told Alan this example one time, he was like, so are you saying you're the Ancient One? And I was like, yes, I'm saying that I am the Ancient One. So he goes to meet the Ancient One. And the Ancient One is like, your way of doing things is only one way. And she like shows him a book of all these different ways of doing things. And he's like, I came all this way to have some like crazy person teach me about like chakras and acupuncture. And then it turns into a movie even more where she like zaps him into another dimension, and she's like talking to him and essentially saying like, you have access to the superpower, but you're limiting yourself by only doing things one way. And his superpower is that he goes into other dimensions, and he has like a ring that helps him do that and a cloak that helps him fly. But his superpower is his mind, is his own mind, where he's like, if I can just get out of my own way and slow down enough to be present with this moment to like, you know, help people and save people. It's really cool because like this character is so relatable. He's such an intense guy, and he only wants to operate his one way, but his one way isn't working. And when he gets taught about how to access different parts of his mind to like go to these other dimensions, he starts to like become like a different person, not change the core of who he is, but to help save people, because that's his like true calling, you know. And I just it's a funny movie, it's a superhero movie, but I lean on this example a lot with clients that have seen it, because it allows us to acknowledge like, look, the way that you're doing things, I cannot change. This must be structural. That's just one way of looking at it, and there's so many other ways to look at things. You're stuck in your one way. Right. And we have to remember that like there's so many other perspectives to have here, just like there's so many other sensations going on in the body at one time. And if we can take a step back from looking at this so closely and to try to get the bigger picture, we can find ourselves being able to change the way not only in which we respond, but being able to notice other sensations in our body too. That was a long-winded explanation, but I just I use that a lot to just make this as playful as possible.
What was the name of the movie again, Vanessa?
I think it's just called Doctor Strange. I think it's really good. It's a good example.
Mm-hmm. And what happens with the clients? Because again, some of the listeners that come into the live studio are might have questions, and you can ask them at any point in the broadcast. But, you know, it's hard for people to change. And, you know, again, TMSers are sensitive. I say they're sensitive and strong people, courageous and very smart. And yet we have an ego, which is a whole nother broadcast about our ego. We have to kind of put our ego into perspective, self-love, compassion, all that chemical shift. But how do we, because changing is letting go. And we know letting go is hard. And people will say, I'm having a hard time letting go because it somehow feels unsafe. And yet we're trying to teach them safety. So maybe we can chat a little bit about the safety threat, which I love the safety threat, you know, talk about how we talk about bringing safety and calm to the brain. Maybe you both can chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, I like to change the word. I do a play on words there a little bit. I like to change the words from letting it go to letting it be. You don't have to get over it and not be bothered by it. I don't know. I guess I, you know, and I'm sure you and many people can relate. I come from experiences where life experiences where you can't just necessarily like get over things. Like it's going to bother you for the rest of your life. And sometimes it won't bother you as much. And then sometimes holidays, birthdays, certain things coming up will kind of like, you know, you'll feel it more. And it's about kind of riding this wave, and it can be here or it cannot. Sometimes it's intense and sometimes it's more manageable. And just like giving ourselves permission to ride that wave is the essence of this work. You don't have to get over it and like not let it bother you. But you can, again, learn how to communicate with it so that you know how to tend to yourself when you're feeling dysregulated. Right. And our whole focus here is getting you to lean in even when things are uncomfortable. Right. And that's how we're trying to change the way in which we respond. Right. Our usual habit is like getting on the treadmill of like, I have to make this go away. This is bad. My body is deteriorating. But we are going, well, what if we get off that treadmill and get out of our head and into our body and start to notice like where you feel that sensation of this will never change, this will never go away. And how big is it? And how deep does it go? And is it pulsating? Does it have a color to it or a temperature? Let's slow down our breathing with it too. What else do you feel in your body? And just getting ourselves into that habit to let it be.
Really, really important.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jeannie?
Yeah, I kind of have a little bit different question, but I've actually just came to me right now. So I have clients, or I've talked to colleagues about this, and maybe just like food for thought or kind of discussion, right? And it's kind of like the old school TMSers, right? Like Sarno Ozanich, who like changed my life with his book, Steve Ozanich. And, you know, Dr. Schechter, a little bit sometimes TMS, emotions, repressed emotions. And when I did I did the advanced PRT training too. And it's definitely tools that we can use in the moment. It's less emphasis, in my opinion, like about like repressed anger and trauma or just repressed like emotions in general. So I've heard people say there's like two camps kind of with this mind body TMS work, right? It's like I don't know how you would say it, the old school kind of like repressed emotions like Sarno, like people who like use TMS still, and now people are like more neuroplastic. How does PRT, like what's the lens that you look at? Or some people who think there are two camps. Is that true? Is it actually a blending? Is it the PRT? You know, some people don't need to do inner deep work. Like they do PRT, right? They could have a book cure. I was a bit of a book cure, but I had done a lot of inner work prior. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Am I wrong? Are we wrong? Is there like a two camp
question?
I definitely think there's an immersion of all of it, and it's a case by case basis, really. I'll give you a few different examples. I have had the client where they've never been in therapy ever in their life, and this is the first stop on that journey, on the last stop of their healthcare journey, right? And they're leaning on this because this is the last stop that they've made in trying to figure out what's going on. And that's a perfect opportunity for us to be therapists and understand like our childhood and the messages that we learned about like why it's not okay to not be okay. Who taught you that? Where did you learn that from? And trying to uncover some of those internalized messages. So kind of, if this is somebody's first stop, I would say like it's helpful to understand how our past experiences influence who we are now. But for me, I have been in so much therapy since I was a teenager. When I got to this work, I was like, I know why I am feeling what I'm feeling. And that's a part of the problem because I know it and I don't know how to make my brain stop.
Wow.
And it was about learning how to get out of my head and just into my body. Like, and I knew why I was feeling what I was feeling. If anything, I would get so frustrated with myself because I'm like, why is this still happening? We're like not in our childhood home anymore. And I know why I'm feeling these things, but and I would get so frustrated. And it was like, I a lot of my work was like, what, maybe it's good that you know that and you can journal about it and process it and bring it up if it tends to come up during certain times of the year. Again, going into the holidays, that can be kind of like a triggering time, but maybe it's less about having that conversation with yourself about why this is here and just paying attention to where it's at. I am that person that benefited from the work in that way, but I have clients that need to start from phase 1. And it's integrating parts work. It's integrating family history and trauma processing into PRT. This is what's unique, like as a therapist, is that we can do that with somebody.
Yeah.
But it's hard to write about it. I felt like we did our best in the workbook to integrate some kind of like past processing in the work, but I can see where people feel like it's 2 separate camps. But us as therapists or coaches, I don't feel like it's 2 separate camps at all. I just feel like it's case-by-case basis. But when people teach it or write about it, I notice that it can feel like 2 separate camps. Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful because we know that it's such a unique process. Like when I even write about like what I do, it's like, and I say to the patient, like the client, like, I can't, this is not your program. It's, it'll be your personal program. It's such an art. So I think in response to Donna and some of Susie's questions who joined us before, I think it really depends. There's no contradiction. I feel like PRT is where Sarno is headed.
Yeah.
And still to this very day, we're thanking Sarno.
Yep.
The PDA is thanking Sarno, and every book, Howard Truber's. So we're so thanking him. There's such an honor and a privilege to honor his work. And I feel like it's evolved into, like if Sarno was today, he'd be sitting in the Pain Brain movie and talking about it. And I think that, and so I want to take a few minutes before Jeannie has to leave, but we'll continue to talk a little bit about the workbook.
Yeah.
And why the workbook and why people need to get this workbook and what's in it that's going to help support them, because it does get confusing. And maybe that's what's going on, with the listeners is, what do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it? And so maybe this workbook will be the insight or the tool that will help people focus, and get from A to B and recover.
Yeah, I like that you said that because when I first started this work 7 years ago, I was told when I first got hired, when there was only like 10 of us at the Pain Psychology Center, and now we have going on 46 or 47. But when I first started this work, I was told to read Sarno's book to know where we started. That was like my biggest, and I read the book, and even as a clinician then, I was like, oh, I can see where we've gone from there. Like I can see the start, and then I can see where we've grown from that too. So like it was a helpful thing for me to read that and understand where we've started. And that's what's led us into this workbook is under like the whole purpose of the workbook is to offer folks a structure within PRT, but a structure that doesn't feel too intense. I think a lot of the times when people start this work, they're expecting that they're supposed to be doing some kind of exercise for a certain amount of minutes, a certain number of days, and like it's supposed to be regimented. But the whole kind of tone of our workbook, of the Pain Reprocessing Therapy Workbook, is to provide people with practices that offer not only insight, but a sense of like lightness in their life, learning things about us that relate to themselves. So a lot of people feel seen in the workbook, integrating like the psychoeducation with real life practices. It's an interactive workbook, so you can interact with like the workbook itself if you want to write in it and read along, or you can scan QR codes along the way that will take you to an audio version of the mindfulness exercise in the workbook so that you can listen if you don't want to read the exercise. So it offers a lot of different approaches, just depending on what works for one person. But the whole goal of it is just to offer some kind of structure, processing like the part of you that continues to come up when you're feeling frustrated or scared, and like just integrating everyone from Howard to Dr. Schubiner to Dr. Clark to the original work of Dr. Sarna to everything that Alan has created. It's really putting like everybody's stuff into one book, because to us, again, that is PRT. It's everyone's stuff in one place.
I love that. I've never asked anyone about the two camps, and I love your answer, and it's really beautiful. Yeah.
I forget sometimes. I do. I forget that you all don't work with us, like in my in our group soups and us talking about all different ways to like meet this one person's needs. And like, I forget. I'm like, what do you mean? It's all of it. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I forgot that it's written and talked about one way, and that's great. But there's so much more from that, and that's what this workbook is, and that's what we really wanted it to feel like.
Well, I love what a workbook is. Jeannie, you have another minute? I love what a workbook is.
About 5 minutes.
Because a workbook is like I feel like when people get stuck is they're stuck in their head, they're stuck in their thoughts, they're stuck in the cycle, and they need to implement and apply. And this is like, I can intellectualize it and get to like where I need to go, but when it comes to action, I'm stuck, and that's where I'm not recovering, says the client. So implementing and applying, and a workbook is like, okay, I'm going to work it. Let's work it. Let's put it to action. Let's, jump into the lion's den. Let's, like Scotty said, let's come out of our comfort zone into our uncomfortable zone. And I would love, that's why I love workbooks, I think. But the question is, people get them and it's like scary. And yes, maybe doing a workbook with a coach, or maybe just doing it workbook and then doing it again. Like, this is a process,
It's a practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I will kind of give something away. It's in the, let me grab it. Just
good.
As many times as I have read it and edited it, I still have an aversion to looking at it now because I've read it so many times.
Vanessa, show us the cover.
Oh yeah, this is the workbook, so it's very, very pretty. Yeah. But there's this exercise in the very, very, very back. It's the last exercise that is my favorite. And the last exercise is a reflective letter writing exercise. And what we do is prompt you to kind of engage in some questions about yourself and where you've been, right? So we have one section that says, acknowledge your strength. Reflect on a recent moment when you were able to view your pain through a lens of safety. Describe the emotions and thoughts you experienced. Identify the specific tools that supported you. And there's many other prompts. And the whole point of this is to be something that you go back to when you're having a hard time, right? It's like utilizing something to go back to so that you remember this isn't supposed to be linear. The path is more like this one. And if you happen to be on a dip, you go back to that reflective letter, or you go back to an exercise in the workbook, right? Because just because you finished it doesn't go away. It's not supposed to just like work. I do this work every day for hours and hours, and I'm sure you both relate to. And I still feel sensations in my body because I have a brain, and
because you're human,
and it's expected. But I've like we teach ourselves how to respond differently. That's what this all is about.
You wouldn't kind of like open the book and read it, or do it from like in linear. Is the book I'm just like giving you marketing, is the book like also not meant to be linear? Is it like step by step, or do you kind of like move around in it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's meant to be linear. Well, it's meant to be, you're welcome to crack it open and do chapters 1 through 6 as you would go through a book. But it's also one of those things where you're going to want to go back to certain sections because you like that exercise so much, or that reminder, right? It kind of makes me think about Alan's book. Like even now for me, there's things in Alan's book where I'm like, oh, I remember that paragraph and it was really helpful, and I'll go back to it as a reminder. Totally. Right. So sure, you can do it from start to finish, but it doesn't have to happen in any kind of timeline. Yeah.
And I feel like that builds people's confidence too, and their intuition of like, it's not what you should, a lot of us.
Yeah.
How many of you guys can relate if you're watching here, like what I should be doing or what
Very good.
Should, and more of like, what do I need? And how can I take good care of myself in this moment? And
yeah.
That.
We call that shoulding all over yourself.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
I had another couple questions. I think I'll just kind of hang out for a few minutes and see when I get a text that my client's here.
Okay.
Yeah. And what would you say, Vanessa? Because I did the advanced training, I did the PRT certification. Is this going to be some of the things that we've learned in this? Because I know like a lot of practitioners and us coaches, we want to buy it. We're, buying it, all those things. And so is it going to be stuff that we've seen in PRT certification? Is it different? Because I know it would be such a good tool for the coaches and the therapists, who are already doing this work.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely, I love that there's the training available. It's really cool to watch so many people get trained in it. But I was here before the training center existed. So it's kind of weird for me to think about there being like this structured way of teaching this work now. Because I learned it by sitting in a corner sitting, almost falling asleep sometimes in a corner of Alan's couch with like us all in his apartment for group supervision. And we just did it as we went. And so I would like to say, there's like definitely an essence of like a linearness in what you're taught in the training, but it comes from our perspective of like practicing this work like day in and day out. I still see clients. I think I have like 25 to 30 clients a week. And I've seen that amount of people for the last almost 7 years now. And so it definitely resembles what you're trained in the training, with just the information of like personal experiences, including my co-author and I, Olivia, like just our experience in doing this work before the training existed by just knowing of it. And then just integrating, again, like Dr. Schubiner's work, Dr. Clark's work, and making it feel like it's a kind of compilation of everyone. So it's hard to say if it relates to the training or not. I just know that it relates to like my day one at the Pain Psychology Center 7 years ago. Yeah.
But it's so great because I was a teacher before I did this, and I just am in the kind of like, I would do things. I was high school. Like I do all these things. You're like, oh God, the kids aren't going to like it. This is like, seems kind of rudimentary, and they love it. And you're like, oh my gosh. And so clients, you try something. And so I love that. Obviously you wrote a whole workbook. We don't have to just like see, we already know from you and like the evidence that obviously they're science backed and they work, and it's a different spin, or there's like different options. So we don't have to just like blindly try sometimes. Like, let me see if this will be good.
That's it. Is like, we wanted it to not only be something for clients, but for coaches and clinicians to be like, I just kind of need to hold on to something and go through it with my client and like have a tool to go back to, and then encourage them to like, engage in this part of the workbook, and then we can do it together and talk about it. And, it's a resource for everyone for sure. That was kind of our goal with it.
And I want to, I'm just going to interrupt because I want to answer a few questions from the listeners, but I also want to say, in light of the conversation, is that, people could be like, oh no, therapy the rest of my life. Oh no, like reading. Like, I want people to realize that, it is about repetition. And this is kind of like life skills. And, us TMSers, as we say, we're sensitive and strong people, and all of us have gone through that. And so if this is your life goal, to stay balanced and stay regulated, and therapy is something you choose to do or do on your own. I know all three of us here, my logo is the doctor in you. We want you to be the doctor. We want you to be the therapist. We don't want you to be interdependent, codependent, independent outcome. We want you to be the therapist. We want you to get it. And so part of it is this repetition, this practice, this learning new habits. And so I think that it's encouraging to realize that we're here, to partner with you, to like go out and fish. We're here to support you. And it's kind of a support system. And we're a community. We're a community and we're here to support you. And so I just want to put that out there that we are really a team. And our job is to see you independent, out exercising, living your life, doing what. So I just want to put that out there. And then I do want to answer, there's some new people here. I'm so happy to see you, Scotty and Susie, who comes to visit. Some amazing people that are doing this work. And this person who I haven't met before, Susan Haney, asked a question. Always walking that tightrope. Am I doing too much, too little? Which approach to take? This was about like TMS or neuroplastic. This workbook sounds like it may simplify the process. Can you respond to that, Vanessa?
Yeah, that is mainly that's why we wrote it. We wrote it for that kind of perspective as a client. We wrote it for that kind of perspective as a clinician. How much do I do? How many questions do I answer? How do I reassure them? And this whole workbook, it comes with the tone of like, okay, I'm just going to focus on what in front of me and get through this chapter. And that's literally how we wrote it. I'm just going to get through this chapter. I'm going to see how it feels. I'm going to see what I can take away. And then I'm going to move on to the next and see how I feel about that and let whatever discomfort be and learn new ways to follow along. Stop trying to figure out what's right or wrong, certain and uncertain, and just slow down and show up for wherever I am at. Because there's this constant rush to get it right as a clinician, as a client. There is no getting it right here. There is just like navigating the waves, riding those waves. That's an exercise in the workbook, ride the waves, and just showing up on a moment-to-moment basis. And when your brain travels back to, yeah, but like how much should I, I'm doing it again. Okay, well, what was my practice that I just learned that reminds me to go back to that place? Okay, like, but I don't know what this is supposed to look like. Oh, I'm doing it again. Okay, right back to what I know, right? And that's why it's nice to either have a workbook or an individual guide, something or someone just to remind you like, hey,
beautiful.
You don't need to do that. Let's come back. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Pop off in a second, but I just wanted to ask one question and maybe, or not even a question, but I just also, think it's so valuable for people in this community to have a resource that maybe they can't afford, one-on-one coaching therapy. And so I just, thank you for giving another beautiful option that's so affordable that people can get like right away.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I need to pop off with a client, but so good, Vanessa. I will be in touch with you. Bye, Tovah. I'll see you in a few weeks.
I love you. Bye,
Bye.
Jeannie. Bye. So I do want to say, in honor of that, so over the last, many years, I've leaned into and gotten very familiar, and I promote Dr. Howard Schubiner's 28-day process on Learn Your Pain. And I also promote Dr. Hanscom's app, which is Direct Your Own Care. It's just brilliant and so full of methods and insights and tools and tips and meditations, and incredible resource, and then I love, because look, Howard's saying 28 days, Dr. Schubiner saying in 28 days, and that book is like chock full. It's like intense in many ways. Like I look at it and I'm like, whoa. And then, the DOC journey, it's amazing and full. And it's like, and for some people it's chocolate or vanilla, like they're just not going to resonate with it. And so this workbook was just brilliant, and I'm really excited about it. I have it on order, and I think it's going to be like a book that I'll go back to over and over again myself. And that's a great point that you made. This is a process. And I think when people are getting better and then having, symptoms pop up, it's like, rather than beat themselves up for like, why am I going through this again? It's like, oh, this is the process. And this is like what they meant about like that. My goal should be regulating my nervous system as opposed to like being pain-free, and ultimately regulating your nervous system will bring freedom from pain. So I see this book as being just an incredible tool and a great, I will feel good. It would be like, great, I have this book to give. Because I'm not, it's all repetitive intelligence. None of us made this up.
Totally.
None of us, like, Alan Gordon even says, like, he got his somatic tracking from exposure therapy. Exposure therapy came from, so we are all here as voices. And we want to give you your voice. We want to give our listeners your voice to speak. So I'm going to answer another question. And also, I just want to say something about Dr. Hanscom, who I study with also. And Susie's very close to Dr. Hanscom as well. And, I think this is true. He'll call me on this, but if he doesn't journal every day, he'll have neuropathy in his feet. And this is a spinal deformity surgeon who became a mind-body doctor, who got rid of 19 symptoms. He couldn't cross the bridge without having a panic attack. And here's someone who was in the game, working on himself all the time. And so it's actually, to me, like, wow, I'm impressed with that, as opposed to, what's wrong with you? You're not better. So again, it's all about attitude. And so, again, and to encourage our listeners to just stay with this and let it be. Like that.
Absolutely. I know I'm very transparent with my own clients. I tell my own clients, like, I go to therapy every week, like, and I have for a long time. And it's not because I'm like in a constant state of suffering, but I actually really like to go to therapy or have a coaching relationship, even when I'm doing well. I want to make space for when things are going really well. And I want to be able to share that with somebody that can highlight the good parts of life and remember to hold me accountable when I'm struggling, right? Like, beautiful. Hey, remember, like, you just had a really good streak. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I did. I just, all of this felt so big right now, Right.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, I just welcome Elizabeth White Carter. She said, amen. Traveling at this moment, sitting forever. Ouch. Oh, this is helping me get through the event. I'm not sure who that is. Do you know Elizabeth?
I do not know, but hi.
Oh, okay. Welcome to the roundtable. Thank you for blessing my studio. So I wanted to take the last 15, 20 minutes and really, this is my agenda. And so I really, when you have a recovery story and a successful story, and you have been there in the lion's den, and you have been scared of the monster under the bed, and you have been in that process, and you did have to sell your soul to get any love as a child, whatever you had to go through. I love to bring it to the forefront, your recovery story. And that's, and I didn't know that. And I heard it with Dr. Hanscom's podcast. And then I spoke to you and I was like, wow, I didn't know that, you kind of, so I would love you to give us a little timeline of, when you first started having symptoms and how you evolved in this. And then obviously you're here now, thank God. So share with us about that.
Yeah. When I was talking with Dr. Hanscom, I was, sometimes having those kinds of conversations remind me how bad it was, because I forget. I was telling him about my story and he was like, wow. And he kept pausing, and like his facial expression was like he was feeling a lot for me, and it made me go, oh yeah, it's been a lot. So it was a very humbling experience, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Or I talk to people that, have bigger stories as a client. And so, my story is interesting. I started having symptoms when I was 11, and they showed up as chronic migraines, and mainly had to do with like, once I like hit puberty, once I started experiencing menstruation is when I started having chronic migraines, because all the women in our family have migraines, especially around menstruation. So it's kind of like almost a rite of passage. Like, welcome to the migraine world. You are
welcome
here.
To the red tent. Welcome to the red tent.
Exactly. And that was a thing for a while, but then they started growing into migraines that happen a couple of times a month. And then the migraines became a little bit more debilitating. They turned into vestibular migraines. I couldn't see, like I couldn't smell things without getting sick. taste things without feeling like I wanted to, throw up. I was very, very dizzy. The sun, the bright light felt so sharp in my line of vision. I started experiencing some IBS symptoms around college and grad school. Even before that, along with the migraines, I was starting to develop some pretty significant pelvic floor pain. So by the time I had graduated from grad school, I had been on maybe 14 different kinds of birth control to tackle pelvic floor pain and migraines.
Wow.
And then somewhere in there, I had really debilitating neck pain in grad school that I believed was like causing the migraines or being caused by migraines. I wasn't sure. I've had a variety of different concussions in my life because of sports. I played rugby for a long time. And so I kept being told like I was having post-concussion syndrome and that if I have another one, it could get worse. And then I started developing like chronic hives. When I would get really stressed out or hot, I would break out in hives everywhere. Wow. So now we're talking about like a symptom you can see, like inflammation, which is a tricky one to navigate through people, but still can be helped with PRT. So I was dealing with a lot of different things, but a little bit of like what was happening in the background. I grew up in a really chaotic home. I'm the oldest sibling. My parent was 15 when they were pregnant, 16 when I was born. I grew up having to take care of everyone else. I have parents that have a long substance use history. So I was in and out of living environments that were incredibly unstable, not having consistent housing, getting evicted a lot, losing things in storages that weren't paid for. Eventually went into foster care. And that was a whole journey in and of itself. And then moving my senior year of high school because we had to move out of town because the parent got custody of us again. And so I had to move my senior year. So I didn't get to graduate with all my friends. And I'm a very hyper independent person. I like to do everything by myself. I like to do it on my own. I don't like to ask for help. I am really good at powering through. I'm really good at problem solving. So while that all helped me during the chaos of life, It didn't help me when I was out of that chaos and created a stable, safe life for myself. One, because I had no idea how to set healthy boundaries with people, like toxic parents that needed to be told that things that happened were not okay and that I was still healing. I did not know how to set boundaries with friends or intimate partners. I did not know how to set boundaries with work-life balance and how much I took on saying yes to everything, and wondered why I felt so dysregulated all the time. Wow. And I didn't realize that until my grandfather, who's my mentor, and I put a dedication to him in the book because he dedicated his first book to my sister and I, so I returned the favor. So it was really meaningful.
Wow.
But my grandfather was like, when I was graduating from grad school, my grandfather, and I had gotten into a PhD program, my grandfather was like, you need to stop and take care of yourself and just reevaluate what you want, because you can't enter into a PhD program feeling the way that you do. You're going to burn out and you don't want to start it and not finish it. So you might as well pause now. And the pause brought me here. So I learned about this work through a mentor, a previous supervisor.
So wait, you were still having symptoms, and then you got this advice, this amazing, wise advice from this man, your grandfather, and you took the advice. And did you see a change in your symptoms, or you just saw something shift in your life?
When I deferred on the PhD program and graduated from grad school, I had the worst panic attack of my life. So slowing down did not feel good. And I tell clients that all the time. I'm like, I know that I'm asking you to do a lot by slowing down, because it sucks in the beginning. It does not feel good. I remember I had no school to prepare for, no school I was in, no 4.0 to keep achieving. I was no longer the president of the honor society. I was no longer at the hardest practicum that you could land. I was just nannying and at home. And I was watching a show called The Office. And I was just sitting there, and I just hit a wall and panicked and felt so much worse. And then that's when I heard about this position. I interviewed and I was like, oh, maybe I'll take that on. That sounds really cool. And then when I started learning about the work, I was like, oh crap, this sounds like me.
This whole concept was made for me.
Literally. And I was like, oh, so I started learning it professionally and personally, kind of at the same time. And Christy Weepy, who was the associate director at the time, her and Alan hired me together. She's now the host of Like Mind, Like Body podcast through Curable. But her and I talk about this and have laughed about it recently. I said, do you remember when you first hired me? And I said, I'm ready to hit the ground running. And she was like, okay, and sent me a lot of clients. And my God, did it really challenge me to take a step back. And in order to really help these individuals, I really had to deal with my own urgency and my own intensity. And I learned a lot of that in the beginning of this work. So I'm definitely a much better therapist now.
What did you do to not only lower your symptoms, but to regulate your nervous system while you were working? Like, you didn't okay, I'm going to take off a year and heal myself. You're like, I'm going to continue to show the face of here I am, a therapist working in this clinic, and yet I am suffering. I am struggling. So how did you come to terms with that?
Honestly, it's a big credit to all the people that I work with. My previous clinical supervisor, Melanie Cohen.
Oh, I know her.
I know
she's
you know
Israeli.
Melanie.
She's Israeli.
Yes, she is. Yeah. Melanie, Alan, and Christy, and a lot of the people that I work with now we're all leaders in the leadership team. We're all the different directors at the Pain Psychology Center now. All of these people just reminded me, in so many ways, when I was like, I don't know how to help this person. They asked this question. What should I do? Should I be doing more with them? Just rapid fire of trying to be the best therapist. Everyone constantly reminded me, oh, you don't have to fix them. What's it feel like for you? When they're asking me this question about what to do next. And I'd be like, I don't know. Why are you asking me that? And they're like, yes, but take a second. Think about what it feels like in your body when this client's like, what should I be doing? Where does that come up? And I'd be like, my chest. I feel like I can't breathe. And Melanie would be like, okay, let's just follow that feeling for a second. And I just learned it from all these people around me. And so I was like, okay, so pretty much what you're saying is it's me. I'm the problem. And I need to practice this in order to show up for other people. So I genuinely just learned from the people around me and started realizing more and more, I don't have to constantly fix everything all the time. In fact, it's going to help people when I don't. And it taught me so much. And there were so many tough moments where I actively felt triggered physically in a session, where somebody experiencing a migraine and starting to have an onset of an anxiety attack made me feel like I was losing my breath. And I was starting to get the flashes in my peripherals that I get when I'm starting to get a migraine. And I would learn that the more that I try to somatic track my own symptoms in order to get over them, to show up for this person, not only am I not being present, but I'm trying to fix my sensations. And so if I did feel triggered in session, it taught me to just slow down and be okay with whatever I can give this person, and it's still probably going to be a great session.
Wow.
And if it isn't, it's going to be better next week.
Wow.
And just really showing up on a moment-to-moment basis, being okay with however it turns out.
So I think what you're saying, which I agree 100%. I think people that are healing chronic pain need to be in their life. They need to be in work. They need to, people bow out because they feel it's so hard to show up, and they're doing it because they don't believe that they can, and they're really hurting, and they've been told by the medical community to go home and rest, or like the old days, we say put a neck brace on to heal your neck, and we don't do that anymore. We're like, go exercise your neck in the pool. So you're saying that, and to some of the listeners, you have to go to be in the game. You can't be a spectator. You have to be in your game, bring safety to your nervous system, have a support team, trust this process, know that you will be triggered. And that's the opportunity. You won't have opportunities on the yoga mat. You have opportunities in work, facing your stress, at the family, dinner, holiday dinners, when you're most triggered, when you're most in discomfort. And that's, can you just, so the method that you're saying was to face, like, well, how would you phrase that? What was the method you were using?
Well, we go back to that let it go versus let it be, right? Like there's actually research on that. There's this one research study that goes over the two differences in a high stakes work stress environment and assessing burnout. And these people that are experiencing burnout are like experiencing symptoms, chronic fatigue, having a hard time balancing their relationships. And they're given the let it go approach, the let it be approach, or nothing at all. And obviously the people that receive nothing, they all burnt out, and a lot of them went on sabbatical. The folks that received the let it go approach, this is what you can do essentially to like get over it. Action oriented, problem solving, focus on the solution. And it kind of helped, not much, but a little bit. But then the group that had the let it be approach, it can be here, it cannot. It's how you respond to it. Let's learn how to ride that wave. Let's learn to hold it differently in our bodies, right? To breathe into it instead of chronically try to get out of it. Right? Because chronic pain isn't just chronic pain. It's chronically trying to solve and feeling chronically unique at the same time too.
Wow.
Like I am different and I have to fix this because this is my problem. And, so understanding that we all have a brain and all of our brains are getting stuck in the state of high alert. So we're learning to let it be, loosen your grip, right? One of my colleagues taught me from her dad that you can squeeze rice in the palm of your hand as tight as you want to try to control it. But the more that you squeeze, the more that you lose it at a faster pace. You have to loosen your grip in order to contain some of it. And some will fall off, and that's okay. Right? But this is about letting it be. And that's what I learned, how to loosen my grip, how to show up for where I am at, even when I am uncomfortable, how to be kind to myself if I did get stuck. If I did get worried about what is causing this, if I did power through most of the day without eating, I do that a lot. And knowing that like, if I am feeling a sensation, it's a good thing because it means that my brain is working and it's saying, you're hungry and you need to go to the bathroom and you need to stop drinking coffee, right? So it's like, it's good. It's just how we respond to it. And yes, it's frustrating when it's happened forever, but like we're trying to approach it through a lens that allows us to work with our nervous system instead of against it.
What about, some of the somatic methods of exercising? Did you have to go back to yoga? Were you getting in the water, or were you doing regular mindfulness at the time? Were you journaling? Like how do you feel about with your personal story and how you obviously were able to not only, regulate your nervous system, let it be, but you reduced your symptoms and you balanced out and you're living in your body's living in more harmony. What are the things did you do to create that?
I am someone who thrives in, like, I need structure in the beginning, but then over time for me, like I really have to engage in things that feel really playful, or else I get stuck in this regiment of like, I should be exercising right now, but I'm not because I'm tired. And because I'm failing. I tend to do that. So I try to give myself permission to do things on a regular basis that feel really playful. I love taking my dogs for a walk. I'm obsessed with my dogs. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see regular updates about my dogs. This is really funny. I have a microphone. I don't know where it's. I do karaoke in between sessions by myself, like at home, and it's exhausting. I don't know if everyone's done karaoke, but I'm like sweating sometimes after because I'm just going in on this song. This is also like slightly embarrassing because my partner said I sound like a 12-year-old boy, but I bought nunchucks because I saw nunchucks on a movie and I was like, I really want to learn how to do that. So I bought some foam nunchucks and I'm like in my office doing my nunchucks to YouTube videos. I have a little like a stair stepper that I do while watching my favorite shows over and over and over again. Never new shows, the same ones over and over. This is just how my brain works. I think all the like regimented stuff is amazing, and I certainly have clients that really thrive in it. For my own journey, I really had to make an effort to find some playfulness because everything felt so darn serious all the time. And I just needed some fun, like I needed a sense of like lightness and playfulness in my life. And the more that I leaned into things that had no other purpose other than just being silly and just enjoying it.
This is neurological. This is neurological.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so the fun, the laughter, the, creating joy, being for no reason, really, really powerful advice. And it's not easy for us serious TMSers and like getting the job done. And
yeah, totally.
And what about the journaling and meditation
and
stuff like that?
Yeah. I like to tack on, for me, again, I like to and I encourage clients if it feels right. I like to tack on mindfulness exercises during times when it feels like a right way to start or end my day or transition into the next thing, right? So I will listen to something as I'm going to bed, or I will listen to an exercise, like a meditative exercise, when I am closing my workday and heading into my home and I want to like rest and chill and make dinner. So I love using practices during times where it feels like a nice shift into the next thing. If I'm driving to meet up with friends and I've been finishing to hurry up work and then get ready and I'm in my feel my body feel a little buzzy, and that's a time when I'll use an exercise so that I can shift into being social me. In my culture, like in my Native American culture, we have labels for people depending on their personality traits that have to do mostly with birds, and people that tend to be a little bit buzzy, anxious, type A, we call them hummingbirds. And so it's like a beautiful twist on something that can feel so negative, right?
Yeah.
So I encourage folks and encourage myself to practice something in a way that allows you transition from one thing to the next, or else it's hard to shift your brain. And then as far as journaling, same thing with this workbook. If this is how it works for you to do it in a daily way and to write these things down, awesome. If you are noticing that you need to practice the nunchucks instead, then practice the nunchucks. Whatever works for you is going to be your thing. And you can figure that out if you are open and curious for your process, or if you have somebody working with you individually.
Yeah. I have
to
chime in. I have to interrupt because
Yeah.
There's this amazing lady living out in California who wrote a book called Unwinding Pain, Bonnie Lester.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She was on my show. We're going to have her again. I met her through Dr. David Hanscom. She healed CRPS like in age in her like 50s and 60s. And she's all about fun and play. She has a parakeet like on her shoulder, and she walked the neighbors' dogs every day in order to deal with her. Like this is like reminds me of the dogs and the walking and whatever she did to not only bring joy but to distract. She would even do things like put a mint in her mouth to distract her mind to focus on the taste. So what you're talking about is something we all are capable of doing in our own life.
Absolutely.
I mean, so wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I love playing with our senses, get engaging in things that feel fun, just to give our nervous system a break from having to,
beautiful.
get like be so focused on the solution. It's
So did you see your symptoms really lessen as the years went on?
Yeah, I used to break out in hives like every day just because I would get hot or stressed out about something. I still break out, but it's like maybe I don't even know when the last time. So I don't know. I have no idea when that happened last. Migraines, I have no idea when the last one was. Maybe like a couple years ago. I used to get them multiple times a month. Pelvic floor pain, I stopped. For me, my journey, I stopped birth control and a lot of things to try to fix all of that, and I really haven't had any pelvic floor symptoms. I get IBS when I eat something that I know I shouldn't be eating, that my body doesn't sit well with, but I don't care because I want to eat it anyways. But personally, I just stopped the urgency in it all. And when I understood that stopping the urgency and the constant need to figure it out was key, I don't know when I felt better, but I did. And I realized that I did because I realized on one day I was having a really good day and was like, whoa, where'd all the things go? And then I really reflected and realized it's been a while and this feels so good because I didn't even notice that I felt well. But that's how it will go for everyone. You won't notice, Christy Weepy says this, I didn't make this up. You won't notice the moment that you feel better because you won't be paying attention to it in that way.
I love it.
And I consider myself recovered. I'm not perfect. I feel like crap sometimes, but that's okay. That just reminds me that I probably need to eat and take care of myself.
Right. It's such a beautiful way to round up the broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's so hard to say to somebody, you know, I don't want I would prefer that your goal not be getting pain free, but that your goal would be to get in touch with your repressed feelings or to regulate your nervous system or to evolve, like however we want to say. But ultimately, and the beautiful thing is it's okay to want your pain to be gone. It's okay to want your body, your autoimmune system to be balanced and to be, you know, symptom free. But let's understand that will happen with the greater goal of and like your focus. We're talking about focus. That's what I wanted to round that up on. It's really about your focus. And tell me if this is true. I kept trying to Google this. If people are focusing on their breath, on their breathing, and we know that when we inhale and we exhale, we create like a whole pharmacy of, you know, opioids and cannabis and amazing chemicals just by our breath, you know, and it's such a beautiful thing, our breath. And if I'm focusing on my breath, or if I'm focusing on, you know, this pleasant sensation in my body, I'm not going to be feeling pain because I'm focusing on something else. So isn't it really just understanding the lizard brain, and that if we understand focus, we can absolutely navigate our brain to focus on what we want to focus on, and we won't feel some kind of chronic pain because our focus is not on the pain. Isn't that science?
Yeah, it is. There's such a thing as like bracing for impact. And when we're constantly bracing for impact of how to solve our symptoms or how to not have it get worse, right? How to figure it out when we're constantly trying to, you know, brace for the next thing or for the solution, like it puts your nervous system in a state of fight or flight. And when your nervous system is in a state of fight or flight, you will feel that physically. And if you feel that physically in a certain part of your body, guess what part of your body is going to be illuminated when you're disconnected from your breath and focused more on trying to just like get through this discomfort and figure it out. A couple of years ago, my partner and I were in a motorcycle accident. And even though we, you know, had different injuries, it was very interesting. He saw the accident coming and I didn't. And so he was hurt way worse than I was. And I wasn't hurt as bad. I was injured, but not as bad. We were on the same bike, but he braced and I didn't because I didn't see it coming. And then in the healing process, I have been in these kinds of situations before. I've been hurt. I've been in an ambulance. I've been in an ER. He never has. And every time he would get new information about his healing timeline, he would turn to me and say, I feel worse now. And I'm like, this is so, like, you're literally so injured right now, but he could feel himself dialing up and feeling worse than he did before the information because he's bracing. Right. It was fear, even when you're injured.
Beautiful. Amazing. I that's like to me an amazing topic. It's remember in Dr. Schubiner's book called Salience, it's like your brain will focus. I think your body, your brain focus on one thing. I can't really explain it so well. And I Google it again because I have to read it again and again because I don't know, but you know, I get to be in this work. I get to study. I get to read it. I was supposed to take your course on Saturday, but I ended up having an emergency patient. It was Saturday night for me. So I hope to be more involved with the courses again. And I love the work. I actually am excited to maybe have your co-author on the broadcast and talk about it again.
Oh, you would love her. You would love her. We talk the same, but she's a lot calmer than I am.
No, I'm not comfortable with calm. I like
no.
With uncalm.
Yeah. She's really sweet. She wrote
terrific.
most of the exercises in the workbook.
Tell her I'll be calling her, and I'm just this
will.
person who's I'm just obsessed and relentless about healing, and I want to meet everybody and talk about it and learn myself and help people. And so anybody out there in the listening audience want to ask one quick question to Vanessa before we round out, because she's got to get on with her day, and it's about my night, and I will turn into a pumpkin at some point. Anybody out there have a question? And Elizabeth White Carter, what an interesting name, Elizabeth White Carter, welcome. And Susie, Susie, I'm always happy to see you, sweetheart. You always have something really profound to say. And then Scotty was on for a while. He's in Canada. And Donna, I hope you're doing well. I know sometimes you struggle, sweetheart. So anybody else want to say something before we say good night and good afternoon? Otherwise, recording will be up tomorrow. And if anybody has a question for Vanessa, I can, first of all, you can find her on Instagram. You can't miss her on Instagram. I think you're on Facebook a little bit. You're on Facebook. Do you have a Facebook?
I am. Yeah, I share all the posts from Instagram go to Facebook. I need to interact more, but I don't interact as much.
Great. That's okay. It could be like a whole triggering thing, social media. Yes. But anyway, I am just again so happy myself to be in this position, to do this, and I am grateful for going on 5 years of this. And if it wasn't for Michael Galinsky, who I called one day and said, I want to do something on the internet, and I don't know anything about technical things, and he's like, Tovah, stop being a damsel in distress, just do it, just get into it. I'm going to help you one time, and then you're done, you're on your own. And I'm like, great job, Michael. That was exactly what happened, And so I still get anxious every time I go live, because that's my pattern. But anyway,
I get it.
I feel very happy to reach out to people like you, and you respond, and you excited to come on and share. Yeah. And if you ever have anything you want to just come on the round table and talk about, I'm here for you. And I'm just thrilled about your workbook. Hold up the workbook again.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about it.
Great, beautiful.
Yep,
great, beautiful.
It's so much stress and joy went into this that when we got it delivered, I was like, "That's it." I was like, This feels like it's like 1,000 pages long in my head.
Amazing! It's not easy to write a book. It's not easy to write a book, and I'm in all of that as well. And so, listen, we will meet again. I don't like to say goodbye. I like to kind of say. Till next time, and thank you very much, and bless your heart.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. God bless everybody. See you next week. Second. Okay, we're going to go off in a minute. I just have